we're paying $85 a gallon. Doesn't sound like much, but if we're painting like a living room and you're using 10 gallons, I mean,
Right.
it all adds up.
The Ohio Painting Company podcast. We're back, episode 41. Got Kevin Silliman and Nick Goebel here with us to talk a little paint myth. And I think the DIYer, they're going to get things in their heads that aren't necessarily true. You guys are the experts, so we're going to get your opinion on some of these myths that we uncovered. And I want to start with the whole situation of what you guys do. Obviously, you are painting contractors. A lot of people that are in this DIY market, they're like, this is going to save me money. I'm going to do it myself. But, sometimes it doesn't necessarily work out. So explain why it doesn't.
Well, it definitely can. Um,
For instance, this is a short one. I just went to an estimate literally just now, 11 o'clock. I go to the basement and I'm looking at this place. I'm like, holy shnikes. It was horrific, right? And the guy says, yeah, me and my brother, we thought we can do this. And I think we did a pretty good job. He says, at the end, once we figured it out, well, they had done the main area of the main area of the basement, and it looked horrible. And they get back to this little tiny room in the back, and it looked really good.
Oh, all right. Well, good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it ultimately comes down to discerning eyes and how much time can you allocate for yourself to do the project.
That's big.
Life is not getting any simpler with all the technology. We're getting more efficient, but it's not getting any simpler. I mean, nobody's automatic. No, nobody's got 5 or 6 weeks of vacation unless you're semi-retired. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So I mean, you can find the time if you want. One thing you can't get is you can't get time back, right?
True.
So, if you take a week off, do you want to enjoy it and celebrate your fruits? Or do you want to work? And if you want to work, I can appreciate that mentality 100%. But time allocation, materials, sure, the paint is the cheapest remodel that you can do, but it's still not cheap by any means. If you're going to buy something that's going to hold up, it's going to be $50-$60 a gallon.
Well, plus the aggravation of doing that on your vacation, you might as well take 4 kids to the beach or Disney World and like pull your hair out because it's the same.
Yeah. It starts off, first 2 days is like, oh, I've got plenty of time to do it this week. So you chip away at it and you piddle and you paddle and because you're on vacation, you're going to get it done. Then come Wednesday, you realize like Wednesday's your first day of really being in it, and
so by then you're to Disney World.
Right.
The prep work goes, and then now you haven't even started painting, and you don't paint every day. So cutting in a straight line takes a lot of time if you're not doing it every day, and all the things. And then come Friday, you're stacked against time. You're cutting corners. You're doing everything you can, so you get the furniture back because you got to go back to work. So there's all of that, and that's not to mention all the equipment that you're going to have to buy to keep things clean if you're going to try to do it in somewhat of a semi-professional manner. And then there's the discerning eyes, like might look good to you. Not that we should be comparing ourselves to other people. Not really the best way. The best race is against yourself. You should be trying to better yourself every day. However, it might look good to you, but your company or anybody else that you may want to impress or have feel comfortable, it might not look that great. It might not look professional. And, it just depends on who you are and who you have in your life and what you want to do and what you want to prioritize.
But yeah, if you've got a substantial house and you go and paint it yourself, unless you're really a perfectionist and you're really, going to straight line it. And it's going to look good, then boy, oh boy. You can tell that most generally, a homeowner has painted their house. It's very evident. There's just things that stick out. Blotchiness is all over the wall. I went into a house yesterday that the guy, he built the house, very much a perfectionist. Everything looked amazing. Cut-in was unreal because he didn't do any caulking for the baseboard to the
Right.
So he's got these gaps everywhere.
A snake line that we've talked about before.
Yeah. So you've got no uniformity in anything. except for the fact that he's got straight lines because he has no caulking. I didn't mean uniformity. I mean, well, kind of
Yeah.
the connection of it. Yeah. So anyway, there's things. He was a
All
good painter.
kinds of things.
So yeah, it's like, we're not naysayers. I mean, we obviously are in an industry and run a business to where our level of scrutiny is extremely high. Reality is we can't go and eat anywhere without being irked by something that we see, because we're always looking at paint lines and stuff. And again, it's stupid passion, might seem stupid, but paint's on everything, and it's the world that we live in. So it's what we do. Your level of scrutiny might not be that high, and if it's not, then actually that's probably it's probably a blessing more than a curse, because you're not going to judge restaurants the way that we do, and all of the things. But still, nonetheless, ladders aren't getting any cheaper. If you don't have a decent ladder, you got to get up above 8 foot. That ladder is going to run you $120. The roller
Minimum. Yeah.
the roller on sale. The roller covers are, if you use a good 9-inch roller cover, it's going to cost you probably close to $15. And hopefully you save that throughout. You're going to end up with boogers in the wall because you're not straining the paint. It just goes on and on. Tape, not cheap. And all these things we buy, at volume and at volume prices. So what you're buying for, if you go to Ben Moore and you're paying $100 a gallon, we're paying $85 a gallon. Doesn't sound like much, but if you're painting like a living room and you're using 10 gallons, I mean,
Right.
it all adds up.
No doubt.
Yeah, and even just sticking with the DIY, but another one of the myths, about not using a primer, right? So my brother Jason, he just painted the side of his house. I mean, he's got scaffolding up. I mean, he's painted with us before back in the day. I mean, the house looks amazing, but he's up there scraping away and painting, and I'm like, Jay, I said, you've got to get a primer on that bare wood, or it's just going to peel again. He's like, what do you mean? He's already got 2/3 of the back side of the house done.
Oh man.
All the high stuff. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, so he started using primer. But I mean, you really do. You have to use primers on bare wood. Paint, I don't care if it says paint and primer in one or not.
Yeah.
It's not. You need a foundation to absorb into that wood.
I was going to speak to that. I mean, like, so there's the new product development, which is, key to any business growth, and you can't fault paint companies for wanting to use it. But primer is a very general term for a broad list of scenarios for where you need a primer. And a lot of times when they say that it's self-priming, all they're speaking to is its ability to adhere or its binding ability.
Or even if it's covered,
it might cover, it might have a lot of titanium dioxide in it. It might cover better, or be called like a one-coat paint. But when you have mud on the wall or spackling, the first thing that mud and spackling is going to do is it's going to drink the shine out of your paint. So if you're using a satin finish, it doesn't matter how many times you paint that wall. If you didn't prime the patching, that spot where you used patching is going to, and everybody's seen it on a wall, it's going to look dead. Where everything else has a nice shine across it, hopefully that they painted, evenly all the way down the wall without leaving rope marks. That one spot is going, and I've seen people go back. I mean, back when I was in college starting painting, I would go back to it 4 or 5 times and touch that thing to try to get it to soak, and it always looked different. And it just comes down to sound foundational practices. And so primer's not always necessary, but it's not it's not all encompassing. When it says it's an all-in-one self-priming paint, it's usually speaking to adhesion qualities for a gypsum or previously painted gypsum scenario. Not bare mud, not bare wood, not bare mostly anything, including like trim. You got stained trim, you don't want to just go at that with paint.
This trim right back here is stained. I did all this.
Did you? That's really nice.
Yeah, but I didn't put primer on this brick. It's really holding up.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, looks great.
Looks good in picture.
Anyway, that was a lot of stuff, and I appreciate it. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this, which I always do anyway. But there's a lot of stuff to absorb, and everything that you guys just said. But Kev, I want to go back and ask a question about the primer. Let's say the exterior of a house. If you were maybe unaware of that bare wood needing that primer, and then you paint over it. I mean, should you start it over? Would you start it over?
Well, you can't. I mean, once it's absorbed in there and dried, you're not going to get that paint off. So you just let it do its job, for as long as it does. Yeah. Depending on the weather, if you're getting a lot of weather on that house, it'll probably pop pretty fast. But we've said it 100 times, on bare wood outside. I mean, even inside, but bare wood outside, latexes are okay, but they just kind of lay on the surface where an oil primer, they'll absorb in there and get that foundation really firm. And then any paint will stick to a good firm foundation, and that's what you're looking for.
Right.
And that oil primer really does that well.
Got it. I want to
Kind
know
of
more. Go ahead, Nick.
Say, and
I can tell by the look on his face, he just painted the outside of a house and he didn't put primer on bare wood and he's wondering how to get out of it, right?
No, luckily
Okay.
not, because our house
Right.
is made of poles right now. We are committing to the house build across the road.
Okay.
The box is checked. We
All
are
right.
going to build a
Who's
house.
building it?
His name is Paul
Okay.
Shoemaker.
Okay. All right. I wondered. I saw some of the.
No,
I
we're
saw
so
some of the-
nervous about it.
but I saw some of them in town last week or this weekend, and I saw the billboards. They've got a lot going on, man.
Yeah, well, our fingers are really crossed tightly, because we've read the horror stories about this. But for every horror story that you can find a good story about it too. So it's
Things are gonna happen.
yeah. Well, more on that is to come. We got a lot walk coming up here next Monday, so we'll see how that goes. One coat is enough. Painting companies, they market the crap out of their products. Say, all you need is one coat. We got you covered. Buy 2 gallons of this, you'll get your whole downstairs done in one coat. That's sometimes necessarily not the case. So talk us through maybe some of your experiences with always doubling up the coats.
Well, we double them up for a foundation of cleanability. I mean, we want to make sure that you've got a good 2 coats on there so that whenever you start wiping, that you're not going through some thin layer of paint, that they've moved around to try to make it even, right? But in some spots, it's a little bit, there are less mills. So to get a good millage on your wall so that the durability of that withstands the washing or scrubbing or whatever you're going to do, we like to have that, again, foundation there. As the mills get thicker, the better the foundation is. So you've got, again, more scrubbability on that. But I do want to say also, I'm going to hit on whites and then Nick can take over.
I was going to speak to that though. Unless you're going to talk about one coat with whites.
Yeah, well, so same basement I went to today, dark blue, and they're going with a light white color. It's something from Ben Moore. It's morning mist or something. So you try to cover up a blue with a white, and you're going to be lucky to cover it up in 2 coats because whites have no pigment in them. I mean, they have no color in them. So I mean, the chances of you covering that up are, well, zero. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So I told him, I said, most likely this is going to be, 3 coats worth of paint.
Wow.
And you'll be happy at the end that you didn't pay somebody for 2, and then, you're out your money and you're paying more. So anyway.
Do you think that would be, I mean, would he be able to notice that bleed through?
Oh, you'd see it. That's the only reason. So if you don't see it, we stop, right? I mean, because you're good. But normally between a roller and a brush mark,
right,
you're pulling paint, you're dragging paint along and you're taking it away. Every time you move that brush back to the beginning and pull, you're taking less paint or taking more paint away from that dark blue spot, and it just shows up, especially in corners. But every time you start again, when you move down the line, again, you're pulling that paint to drag it out, right? But you're pulling it away. So you might be able to get it with the roller. But even with a roller, I mean, you've got to have a thin nap. It just goes on and on. But go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, the one coat, it'll cover in one coat. There's a void in the market for everything. There's a market for property management paint where they walk into an apartment, cover the floor, and spray everything in the same paint. Our practices and our scrutiny comes directly from feedback from our customers and experience and our own personal experiences and what we think is the best decision. But one coat of paint you can only paint on so thick before it starts running or it leaves too much texture and looks wonky. And ultimately we don't like to haggle. I mean, like that's we're in the transformative business, and the business of taking care of our customers and giving them as close to white glove service as you can in this industry. So
It's
somebody
not hard though. I mean, that part of it, because there's so many painters out there that
we
are,
appreciate it. It's fulfilling. It's like, are you doing something just to do it, or are you doing something to feel fulfilled and to put something good out in the world? We've had that discussion before. Nonetheless, talking about haggling, it may or may not be with intent, but if somebody's selling you a one coat job and they're sticking to it, there's a disclaimer in there, and it might be unwritten, but you're getting one coat. Then anything beyond that, you're going to pay more for. So that's hidden cost. And if you're not going to be happy with that one coat, be expected for haggling and to go into that transactional nature of them asking for more money, and you're left to the scrutiny and the decision making of the person that you've hired. How much are they going to charge you for that second coat? Because it hasn't been discussed yet. So it could be
like 45% more, of what your bill is.
Easily double. Or if they found something wrong on the wall, give them a good chance. Like, well, this was unexpected. So this by itself is going to cost an extra $50 plus the additional coat that you have. And it just goes on and on and on, and that's, if you don't run a tight ship, those are scenarios that you can, that you as a company, you can end up in, and you have to fight for that. And you set yourself up for that. And if you are a homeowner, you've hired that person, you're going to have to haggle through that to get what you want. And maybe with success, maybe not. I don't know. We've heard good and bad both ways.
Sure. I want to know, is there any place in the country that you can get away with 10 years between exterior paint jobs?
Oh, yeah.
In Ohio.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. I mean, because we always talk about the changes in temperature, swings and, temperatures, weather. You get rain in the morning, you get snow at night, you get sunshine in the middle of the day. So it's just taking every single, difference in climate throughout the year. So, I mean, obviously there's going to be a different paint application process if you want it to last that long, which we can maybe talk to close up about. Every paint's the same. That's a myth. So 10 years, that's a long time.
Every substrate is different. You got metal, you got hardy, you have wood. We say it's still living, even though it's off the limb, it's still expanding, contracting, and absorbing moisture and releasing moisture and drying out and then getting re-moist. So something like that is a little bit trickier, and you can put more extensive front end work into it to make it last longer. But a wooden house, if done right, unless it's a wooden house from the 1800s and it's been painted 20 times, you should be able to get a wood house to last 10 years. You're going to have some areas, some valleys on a house, or some overly shaded areas that just do not dry out fast enough that you might have issues with. And that's what warranties exist for. And that's what good, standing companies exist for is, oh, we painted that for you 6 years ago. Everything looks fantastic except for this one corner. Why don't we just come out and take care of it for you? Or if it's extensive, requires wood replacement, it's like work out a reasonable deal to get that taken care of. But I mean, we're all over the place between Dayton and Cincinnati, and it's not always sailing, and it's not always in sales, project management. Sometimes we have downtime. Kevin and I go back at houses that we've painted, and we've even gone back to houses that we painted 12 years ago and taken pictures of them for model pictures because they still look fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, hardy board. If hardy board's painted right, it'll last 18 years.
Wow.
Well, you can get a factory finish from hardy board right now that lasts, supposedly, it's going to last quite a while. But what I've noticed with it just recently is some of that pre-painted wood is actually hardy. This is kind of crazy. I probably shouldn't even say that, but the bottom, that's where all your moisture comes in, is on the bottoms of these lips, right? Because your water comes down, drains to the bottom of it, goes down to the next one. But whatever hangs here,
the drips and everything.
The drips, yeah, they start getting, the moisture starts wicking up into any crack that's there. And what I've noticed on this one particular building is that pre-painted hardy board has a lot of cracks in it, as if it was almost
Well, I know what you're saying.
Almost defective, like,
and it might not be hardy. It might be. It's not T111. I mean,
Right.
It could be hardy. It could be.
Yeah, let's not just say hardy board, because
It's a fibery cement board. I
There
mean,
we go.
Menards has it too. It's not just hardy. There's a lot of manufacturers of this type of fibrous cementous board that has the embossing of like wood grain on it. And
But what we do is whenever it does go bad, and this has been a big lifesaver as far as having to replace if you're not under warranty of your siding, is we'll take and we'll scrape all that bottom out before it starts to expand, because that's what it'll do. It'll start expanding. We'll scrape all that out. Again, shove oil primer up in there. And whenever you do that, of course, it seals everything up. Then you put 2 coats of paint on top of that, and you're going to be solid.
well, then we'd also, like, after the primer, then we'd come back and fill those gaps in with Solar Seal.
Yeah, anything that's gapish looking, kind of even it out.
Again, if water can fit in there, it will, and it'll suck up. And then come wintertime, that water, what's water do when it freezes? It expands, it gets bigger. So now you have a small amount of water fitting into a crack. It freezes. Now it's going to push those fibers out, and it's going to increase the swelling. So
It's going to be a painter by the time we're done with all these podcasts. He's just absorbing it all in.
I'm doing it for the people. Okay.
thank you for your service, Brett.
Yes.
I remember when we started this, we were like, let's teach the DIYer how to do it. And now we're kind of like, this is how we do it, you know? I think that's better anyway. I had to move over here because the sunlight was barreling through the window and making my face look crazy.
It looks pretty overcast over there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very overcast. That looks nice.
It is on the lake. That's way different back there, but the front of the house where the road is.
Is that Harry Potter's microphone too?
It's disappearing. How's that happen?
Yeah. I put the cloak of invisibility on it. All good stuff all around. Is there anything else you want to touch on? I mean, I know I kind of wanted to close up on the every paint is the same kind of thing. You know, obviously it's not, because there are paints that you just mentioned that can push a exterior painting job out close to a decade. So, I mean, that's high quality stuff, right?
Yeah.
Beyond a decade.
Yeah. I mean, you can rock with it. I mean, we've seen houses that have not been painted, but they were painted by just a contractor, grade painting company. And they've lasted, 15, 20 years. They've never painted this house. Now it's faded galore. UV's taking the tar.
It doesn't look good, but
it doesn't look good, but it's secure. Nothing's peeling. I mean, they've done a great job as far as prep. So you can get one of those, and as long as that board, again, is not expanding anywhere, which we do a lot of replacement on that. But as long as it's not, you can put 2 coats on that, and it's going to last another 20 years. I mean, for that customer, if that's what they want.
Yeah.
Well, that'll putting them on. How far do your calendars go out? If you put an application like that on somebody's house, we were talking about repeat customers just a couple weeks ago. You're like, all right, well, we'll talk to you in 2044. We got you marked down for November of 2044. How does that look? What are you going to be, 80 years old?
Yeah. Most of them say, I'm not going to be around anyway.
Yeah, you're all right.
Yeah. Just put 1 coat on it. I don't care.
Right.
Kids are going to get it. Yeah.
Kevin Silliman, Nick Goebel, the Ohio Painting Company podcast, episode 41. We'll talk next week. Thanks so much.
Peace.